All right, welcome to the Thursday, January 22nd, 2019 meeting of the Falls Church City Council. We are delighted you all are here with us this evening. Welcome to you all. We had an eventful Martin Luther King Day celebration yesterday, which I think was well attended by members of council. And our thanks go out to the organizers of the march and the program, the Committee for Social Justice, and also our day of service that Ms. Hardy had a big hand in. So we thank you for that. A great turnout for that as well. Should we get started on the first item on the agenda, which is the resolution designating 4 new Falls Church specimen trees?
Thank you, Mayor Tarter. And we have our city arborist, Kate Reich, and our chairman of the Tree Commission, Mr. Dennis Szymanski, who are both here to speak to this item. Mr. Szymanski is being shy and not coming forward, but I think he's welcome to come forward. But at any rate, we're adding 4 trees to the specimen tree list.
Yes. So the specimen trees list, as near as I can figure out, started in 1981, and at that time there were 12 specimen trees. By 1995, we had 58 specimen trees, and we're now down to 44. So with these 4 new ones, 43, that's a typo on mine, 43. With these new ones, we'll be up to 47. I thought that was kind of interesting that we started slow, but a lot of trees got added. And since 1995, 36 trees have been removed. So when we had 58 trees, we've lost 36 of those, but others have been added so that we have 3. So one of the things that comes with being a specimen tree, to be designated a specimen tree, generally it helps if it's a large, mature tree. So that kind of puts them in the category of not necessarily going to be here for 50 more years. So it's important that we keep scouting out and adding new specimen trees from time to time because some of the old, because we don't designate young, they have to be mature, they have to have a good form. Of these that I've nominated, or the Tree Commission has nominated at this time, if you 6, there are photos, 6 and 7. First you'll see a Kwanzaa cherry on West George Mason Road. That's a nice, big, attractive, you can see how thick the trunk is kind of by looking next to the fence there. Ornamental cherries are often short-lived, so it's nice to see cherry. It doesn't have damage that a lot of old cherries have. It's just in really good condition, and the owner is really happy to have it the specimen tree. Nominated himself. Tree number 2 is an American beech on Nolan Street. I nominated that one. I can't believe nobody else ever nominated it. That thing is a landmark. It has a branch structure that goes all the way across the street. Just an outrageously attractive tree. It has some damage, but it also has some cables in it. Owners have been trying their best to keep this tree around as long as possible, so even though it has damage, it is being managed and cared for. The owners agreed to let it be a specimen. Number 3 is a pignut hickory belonging to Ms. Steinberg, who was really eager to have it designated. She's on Timber Lane, and she's concerned that there's a lot of redevelopment in her neighborhood, and nice, really attractive, mature pignut hickory. That was our tree of the year last year. And so she wanted that one designated. Number 4 is a forest pansy redbud. That's the one where the forest pansy is the variety where the leaves come out purple, not just green. But most redbuds, they look almost like bushes. They have this little sort of droopy effect, and that doesn't look anything like most redbuds. I mean, that looks like a really nice tree. So because of its uncommon form and large size, I also nominated that one. So just to keep the specimen tree list alive and moving forward, we're bringing these 4 today and asking that you agree to advertise for a public hearing and vote on these trees at a future meeting.
So let me ask you, thank you for your work. Just before we get started, let me ask you, what is the effect of our vote on this legally?
I mean, if you you vote to designate them?
Yes.
So if you vote to designate these trees specimen trees, they get added to the specimen trees list. And that means it actually doesn't provide any benefit to the owner. It's just a form of pride, of community pride. So what happens is the owner of a specimen tree needs to get a permit to do tree removal, when in most cases a backyard tree doesn't need a permit. Or, you know, private property tree doesn't need a permit. Specimen tree does need a permit. And in the case of development nearby or on the property, we'd be looking for ways to move that development around to spare the tree. But it doesn't mean that the tree can't be removed for development. So if development that would otherwise be allowed would be stopped by having the specimen tree, the owner can have the specimen tree removed that development. But they just have a few more hoops to jump through before they say that we really need to remove this tree because the development needs to be such and such. They can't just do it the way they can now. Any tree on your property, any tree on Mary Beth's property does not require a permit unless you're in the resource protection area or you have a specimen.
How about Phil's property? That was a joke, by the way.
Licenses tree service contractors. So every year I send them the updated list so that they know that they can't work on any of these trees without.
Who do you send that to?
All of the licensed contractors in this church. So
But-
every year they have to get a new license, and every year I send them out an updated list and let them know that on private property, they don't need a permit except on resource protection areas and on the trees that are specially designated as specimens.
And if they were to go cut down that tree, what would happen to them? Anything?
There are not really specific penalties attached to specimen trees, but there are penalties attached to violating the tree ordinance in general. And so it would kind of depend on what we could hit them with. If you violate tree protection, so if it was a protected tree on a construction site, it's $1,000 for the first violation. Other violations, I think, are smaller, and I honestly don't remember.
It's okay. It sounds like mostly it adds some hoops to jump through. There are probably not a whole lot of real harsh penalties you can hit people with if they violate it, probably.
No.
But the idea is to get people thinking about what they might do on their property and
Yeah.
try to,
Right. And even though permits are required to do work on specimen trees, we don't require permits to prune. Some people ask for them anyway, just so that I can come out and bless it. But even though we require a permit to remove, we don't charge money for that. So if you have a specimen tree, say, and it dies, I'm not going to charge you for the permit to have that dead tree removed. I just want to know about it so I can update the list and give you a permit, and it won't cost.
gotcha. How do the subsequent owners know that there's a, quote, specimen tree on their property?
That's a good question. We don't really have a good program for letting them.
I mean, the way to officially do it would be put something on the land records, which probably nobody wants to do, but that's how,
Yeah, that's not what we do. And, yeah, the difficulty with putting a tree in land
Kill the tree.
records is that then if the tree dies, somebody has to go and update the land records, and somebody has to do that, and it's another expense. We do put it into the Munis system so that any permits that come up for that property are flagged. There's a specimen tree on that property. So it is in the permit system, but there isn't, we don't go through and see if the ownership of the property has changed and send them a letter, no.
okay. Anyway, just a couple questions. What do you, does anyone else have other
Yeah, I
questions?
wanna clarify.
Yeah.
So this does convey if a property sells.
It does.
Specimen.
Mhm.
What did you say the age that you start with is? It has to be 50 years old?
Oh, no, no, we don't have a specific age.
You don't have a...
You know, trees like crab apples or cherries, they might only live 40 or 50 years.
Right, yeah, my cherry
And
died
like
at...
a tree like an American beech may live for 300 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, no, there isn't a particular age limit. It just needs to be mature, as in, it's almost a visual thing. Does it look like a teenager, does it look like a grown-up? So if it has a mature form, well-established, it's been growing in a long time, I mean, it's hard to describe because, again, it depends on the species, what a mature tree looks like. Sorry, you'll have to take my word for it.
Mm-hmm, yeah, that's interesting.
Kate, does it have to be a native tree? I assume not, since you have a Kwanzaa cherry.
No, it doesn't. Now, the tree commission, a person can nominate their own tree, but generally, the tree commission is mentioned in code for specimen trees, that they are the ones who nominate. And the tree commission does have a preference for native trees. However, this Quonset cherry is not native.
Okay.
It's not native anywhere.
And is there a goal for how many trees we want to be on the specimen tree list? Like for a city of our size, is there like a target of, we'd love to have this many that are mature and beautiful?
No, I don't think so. And again, the tree commission has talked a couple of years ago about the possibility of putting incentives out there for people to designate their trees. But at this point, we haven't come up with any incentives. So it's actually, in most years, it's hard to get people to be willing to have their tree designated, because all it does is, in a sense, create a hardship for them. If you want to sell your property for redevelopment, knowing that it has a specimen tree on it, knowing that there are extra hoops to jump through, could be difficult. So a lot of people are not willing to have their trees designated.
So I wonder if a goal or target of, for a city of our size, maybe we should have X number of trees, because we have percentages around tree canopy, right, in the city. Right. So maybe if we had a complementary goal around, how many specimen trees we should have, then that could be like a rallying cry of, hey, you should get your tree nominated, as part of being the specimen tree list. That helps us get to our goal of X, and, because everyone's on board with the idea of it, but I think it does carry some extra baggage for future homeowners.
Right. But also having clear criteria for what qualifies. At this point, we say that they are mature and in good form, but there aren't any specific criteria. So maybe if we had a goal for a number of trees, we'd also have criteria for collecting them so that people could try to add their trees to the list and try to maintain their trees past maturity so that they could be on the list. One of the things we'd like to do is save more mature trees. We are really good in Falls Church at making sure that new residential development, redevelopment plants new trees where they're needed. But it's harder to save mature trees. Or we can build awareness around preservation.
Yeah. And the source of pride. I know that I've seen lots of houses with the VPUS kind of preservation plaque on the front of their houses when they redo them, and people talk about it. Like I've seen open houses where people talk about that as a source of pride when they're listing their house. So I wonder if specimen trees could carry that same sort of pride. If you have a specimen tree, it took a lot of care to maintain it and keep it in that condition.
Right, and I didn't bring the booklet back again, but the booklet that was produced by VPUS about trees in Falls Church, I mean, those kinds of things where we can just people's minds how important trees are to all worthwhile. Because I think, back in 1981 when this started, I think it was a point of pride. I think people were lining up and the city arborist would say, nope, that one's not good enough. And now it's like,
Mr. Z?
Thank you, Mayor. Falls Church has been a Tree City USA for a very long period of time, and we have a plaque memorializing it, plus badges for every following year. And at this point, we would have the plaque in three, maybe almost four plaque boards with the badges on it, and I think it would, the citizens of this community would welcome having that mounted in a prominent location in our new city hall. It's a city hall, but at the same time, it is Tree USA. We were the first one in all of Virginia to have that designation, and we should celebrate that. Tomorrow, when I assume the chair of the COG, Climate, Energy, Environmental Policy Committee, I've picked three things that I think are not only common sense, but also go a long ways toward, in many ways, enhancing our area, especially with regard to air quality. And so, yeah, you might expect green buildings and and also renewable energy production, but top among those is the tree canopy. So if we can actually get a set of guidelines or best practices enacted across the region that encourages the entire region, all 29 jurisdictions, to not only protect but also enhance our tree canopy, I think that would be a good thing. As I said, goes toward air quality, but more importantly, also goes toward defining who we are as a as a region. So I'm happy that we are able to have this nomination for 4 trees here. Number 3 in particular, I want to say I've met with Lorraine Steinberg twice. This pignut hickory has a little bit of history on it. It's right up against the fence line. And the adjoining property has been purchased, and the new owners intend to clear cut nearly every tree on that property, and including probably a large part of the root ball system of this tree. So if it hadn't been for the good work of the city arborist and tree commission and the diligence of Ms. Lorraine Steinberg in trying to preserve this tree, which was, again, the tree of the year last year, that we would not be in a position to be able to nominate this as a specimen tree. So I'm happy to support this effort. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other? Vice Mayor Connolly?
Is there a way for, is this list posted anywhere? The specimen tree list?
I do believe it's posted online.
Okay.
So I don't know how easy it is to find.
Right. It would be
But,
just kind of fun to do some kind of scavenger hunt or go around the city
Right.
and find your trees. I don't know if that's a good Operation Earthwatch activity or.
Right. I do know that we're not quite caught up yet, but since we've added an urban forester
Yeah.
to my office, we're getting caught up, and I think outreach is something that has fallen off the table the whole time that there haven't been enough people. And so outreach is something that we're going to try to focus on in the coming year. I can't tell you quite when we're ready to start, because he's just getting up to speed and we're catching up with the backlog, but I think that that's something that we can look forward to.
That'd be great. I know the project was an Eagle Scout who labeled some trees around the city.
Yes, it was
That's-
actually Seth, but an Eagle Scout carried out
Okay.
the first round, yeah.
So that's great. I mean, I love to, oh, right, that's that kind of tree. So it would be great to be able to have these labeled somehow.
Yeah,
And
I think a
also
lot of small outreaches, I think
Yeah.
people catch little things like
Yeah.
a tree label,
Yeah,
yeah.
something different. And this tree, this Quonset cherry, is indeed one of the most beautiful trees in Falls Church. I look forward every year to when this tree's in bloom, and
Oh, good.
yes, I walk my dog under it, and we.
Mr. Hassan will be thrilled to hear that, so.
Yes, it's beautiful.
All right, anything else? Well, thank you very much for your fine work, the Tree Commission as well. We appreciate you coming out this evening and look forward to more good work. All right, let's move on to the next item, Mr. Shields, our downtown park naming discussion.
So came out of a request from council to bring forward your own policy for how you would designate a name for a city park or facility, and so that's in the staff report, and this really is a council discussion. But just as a brief setup, obviously we are making improvements to the downtown plaza. That's what we're calling it, but that's really a staff name. Or just for lack of a better name. And originally this park was funded by the Chamber of Commerce, and when it was created in 1966, downtown plaza, I believe, was called Commerce Park. But that name is not in general currency. But we could try to resurrect that and publicize that a little bit more. I need to check the record on that a little bit. I've kind of heard that secondhand. But the question before the council is, shall we have a more historically or a person, or have the name be something that's authentic in Falls Church and really represents what the community, how the community views this park? So that's the discussion for tonight. Based on what the policy is, that if you do, you can either solicit names through asking the public, but ultimately, when there is a recommendation, it would be referred out to boards and commissions for comment on the name, and the Planning Commission, the Historical Commission, and the Rec and Parks Advisory Board are named named boards that would have a role formally in this process, and the council can then add any other boards and commissions to it that you choose. So that's a quick staff report. And Vice Mayor Connolly, I think in particular, asked that this be brought to this meeting. So maybe I'll turn it over to you if you'd like to speak to it.
So with the passing of Mr. Brown, the idea came from a couple citizens that it might be nice to name the plaza after Mr. Brown, and that has been discussed here and there. So we were curious about what the naming policy would be, and then some other people had some other ideas about what we should name the park. So I personally think it would be great to have a call for entries from the community and ask the community what you think what should we name this downtown plaza? Shall we keep calling it downtown plaza? Shall we name it something else? And if we did that, it's January, so if we did that during February and March and we're able to give it a name later this spring, I think that would be a good use of resources and a good way to name the park. Others in the community have expressed concern that this policy allows you to name a park for someone who is recently deceased, and perhaps there should be a waiting period to name something after someone, even if it's, or name the park after an event, or name the park after a value of the community. So there's a lot of different ways you can go there, and I think I'm just wondering what everyone else thinks, I guess.
Well, Phil wanted me to ask if he could name the park after himself. I'm just, All right, so do we have any?
I like the nominating process, and people can vote. Sounds good. I think Arbor Day is when I heard Jim Snyder saying he was targeting the spring improvements to be done, so that timing should work out where the park could be unveiled with its new name in the spring.
When is Arbor Day? Mid-April? Early April?
Yeah.
You don't know when Arbor Day is?
Usually around April 20th or thereabout.
Around April 20th, so like late April.
Okay.
Yeah, I would, I like the nomination process. I also like the fact that it would be considered by the 3 boards and commissions that Wyatt mentioned. And I would just ask, if we do put it out to the community, that in their response, they at least provide some reasoning as to why they're recommending that individual. It doesn't have to be a 10-page essay, but at least a short paragraph. Have the boards and commissions named, consider it, bring it back to council, make an ultimate decision. That's what I would prefer.
I think that's a good idea. It would be great to have, yes, an explanation. So it would be your suggested name, or different, if you wanted to call it Quonset Cherry Park, why would that be? And a short paragraph explaining why.
500 words or less.
Yes, yes.
What
So,
do you want to call it that?
no, maybe
About
one,
10 words or less.
yeah, short paragraph. And I'm wondering if we want to also ask the Chamber of Commerce to be added to the list to consider it, because there are businesses right around there, and maybe also include the neighboring businesses. At least make sure that they have an opportunity to nominate a name.
Who chooses the name?
We get to choose the name.
Oh. Well, in that case, go for it.
It's been an EDA-led initiative. Are they going to manage this process? Or staff plus EDA?
Staff plus CDA.
Okay.
Yes.
Maybe we should throw it out to the school community as well. 'Cause it's, give them a stake in the city in the best possible way. I would think that if we gave them the opportunity to propose a name, they would not disappoint us in looking forward to the future, as opposed to memorializing something of their past, which I think is where we want to be. Thank you.
When Jesse Thackeray Preschool was named, the school board did a similar process. They put it out to the community and got about 20 recommendations of names for the school, and then there was a subcommittee that narrowed it down. And then I think the school board made the final selection.
All right, anything else? Yes, one more thing to be said, 2 more things to be said.
So it's a little hard for me to disconnect this process, which presumably would apply to other properties in the city, right? From this particular property. It feels a little early to me to name this particular plaza. I mean, the process seems okay, but I feel like that it sort of presupposes that we're going to name it something in particular if we're going to try to get it done by April 20th, which means that it really would have to be chosen by the 1st of April. As you know, I've asked if we might consider other names than the presumed first preference that I've heard some express.
Isn't that why the community's going to nominate them?
So everybody feels comfortable that we can get this done in a couple of months and 100%. Okay.
And I suppose if we can't, then there's not if it doesn't get named by Arbor Day, it wouldn't be the end of the world.
TBD Park.
The TBD Park, yeah.
All right. Anything else on the naming process for this park? All right. So we've got a fairly short agenda because we're almost done with it. But the idea of going into closed session is also something that I think at least some of us would support tonight. Why don't we go to council schedule and requests? Are there any council, Mr. Snyder?
Thanks very much, Mr. Mayor. Next Monday is the Virginia Transit Authority Day in Richmond, and that may go late, so I will try to get here, but may miss all or part of the council meeting next week. Secondly, I'd like to request that the staff draft and the City Council approve a letter to Metro on its proposed budget. I've been saying in regional meetings that we are not in a position to pay for beyond the 3% increase in operating costs, and I would appreciate a letter that the council approves stating that, and then my plan would be to appear at the Metro budget hearing on January 29. There are 3 budget hearings. That's the one in D.C. It happens to be closest to where I work. There's another one in Alexander the next day, but I'd like us on record making that statement pretty clearly because I think that's the view of the council as I've heard it. And then in addition, I think, Cindy, you can add some positive discussion about improvements that have been made.
Yeah, so staff is starting to develop that, and with council concurrence and the city manager, we could bring it to the 28th meeting for council review and action with a draft review by Mr. Snyder. We would like to highlight some of the positive changes that we're seeing in Metro in terms of service delivery and stuff, so it's encouraging ridership instead of raising rates and turning riders away. So a bit of a carrot and stick with the primary focus on the 3% operating cap as intended in the state code, not what we're seeing in the draft budget.
All right. Other comments or schedule requests or other requests? Yes.
I think Mr. Snyder brought this up previously about the federal shutdown, but I just read an article that at the state level, Virginia is losing $21 million in payroll taxes so far because of the shutdown, and this was 10 days ago. So I assume that number is higher. And then Metro on top of that, I think, is losing $400,000 a day. And so I don't know if that's going to translate back to impacts to us at the locality level or any other state subsidies we get. But I wanted to see what we're doing in response to all of this. I did see Communications put out a nice message with resources that the city and neighboring counties are offering to furloughed workers. But as it relates to kind of our budget, I was hoping that we get more discussion in an upcoming session.
All right, Mr. Lichtenhouse.
Do we have any feedback from staff on the suggestion of pursuing a parking agreement with the office condo building next door to the library? I brought it up on a couple occasions, most recently when Jenny was here to present on the updated renovation. Has there been any progress on that?
There has not been. It's something that was explored at length, and we didn't reach agreement, but we could pick it up again.
I'd like to. It's a constant point of discussion during Board of Trustees meetings. And in light of the fact that we may remove some parking spaces out front or may not as part of the renovation, I think it's a problem that we need to solve, and I'd like to stay ahead of it before we actually break ground over there, because I think that if we don't, we may end up just kicking a problem a little further down the road. So.
All right, any other requests?
Just
Mr.
to
Duncan?
report, the GovOps committee met this morning. Ms. Conley and Ms. Hardy were able to be there as well as I was, and we went through a list of 14 items, which I will not detail here, but if anybody wants to know the details of what we discussed, happy to share that with them.
All right, anything else, Mr. Z, then Vice Mayor Conley?
I'm wondering whether we're actually going to have groundbreaking on the Founders Row project. Are we, I know that Mr. Lickenhouse and I are looking forward to taking turns at, with that big log, grabbing a piece of 7-Eleven, but without a formal groundbreaking, we're not going to do that on our own.
There will be a formal groundbreaking and a date to be determined. We're pressing the Mill Creek team to get that date, but I think they've got a lot of stakeholders they're trying to work with on that. They have not yet given us dates to choose from, so we can make sure that we have people there that would want to be there. But please stay tuned; it will be forthcoming.
Yeah, there's
and there will be
email
one.
traffic about it, and just not ready. They're just not ready to pick the date yet. So the demolition is supposed to be done according to the management plan by the end of February. Whether that'll happen or not probably depends on the weather, but it's not going to be before March, I think.
That's right.
Well, Mr. Lickenhouse, it looks like you and I might have to just bring out a little hammer and knock over the last brick.
And one thing I will note, the Planning Commission is having a meeting tonight, and on their agenda is a briefing on the construction management plan. And so there'll be that public discussion about how they'll handle trucks and et cetera, in the staging and all the aspects of the construction. But there will also be a neighborhood meeting, and that's going to be set up very soon, which is part of their proffered conditions to do that on a regular basis. And so that will be soon, also a date to be determined, but we're pressing them on that.
Some of you may see online reference to how many clear lanes are going to be preserved westbound Broad Street, and the answer is 2 through lanes and the turning lane are going to be preserved throughout the project, with occasional exceptions for major equipment moving. Anyway, that was a citizen concern that we were going to somehow pinch down Broad Street, which we are not. But we are, well, construction management plan, the Planning Commission's talking about. It'll be important for people to know that pedestrian access from Spring Street through West Street will be moved to the south side of the street.
That is correct.
Vice Mayor Conley?
Another topic that was on the agenda at the GovOps meeting today was snow removal on sidewalks, and I just want to say to members of the community that you need to clean your sidewalks when it snows. This afternoon I ran into someone else who was very concerned about Northwest Street and Great Falls and Oak Street in that neighborhood, and how poorly shoveled some of the blocks were, the residential blocks. We had talked about commercial, but I think he was very concerned about kids walking on West Street and on Great Falls because they had no other way to get to school or get to school buses. So we talked about coming up with a way to keep encouraging people to do that, and if that includes fines and tickets, I would like to explore that.
Yeah, the code does authorize a $100 fine for the first offense, and it goes up to a $500 fine for multiple offenses. And so that's in the code. We have been restrained in using those fines, but the message is loud and clear. People expect it to be enforced. They want it to be enforced, and we're working to systemize that better.
We're doing
Thank you.
doing PSAs just in response to an email that we got last week from a citizen. Please don't park in a handicapped zone, even for 30 seconds, all right? Just don't do it because, you know,
we have that system down pat.
Exactly. We're giving those tickets out, and they are $500 tickets. So do not park in a handicap zone if you do not have a handicap sticker.
On shoveled sidewalks, not to belabor the point, but given the thawing and then the refreezing that's happened, so that some people have actually done a nice job shoveling, but because there was so much snow, it kind of melts all over the sidewalk and then refreezes, which actually is worse. Does the city offer any help for situations like that? Because I saw some cones out on Spring where I think it said sidewalk closed because of how much of that was happening.
Yeah, and it's usually because someone has a sump pump that's discharging near a sidewalk. And it's an ancient problem and one that's not going to be solved immediately. So typically when that comes up, Public Works will go out there with a whole lot of salt and try to treat it or cone it off. But there are a couple of habitual sort of repeat areas in the city, and we generally know where those are.
2 of them are in Spring.
Yeah, Spring is a high water table area, and that's definitely one of them.
For the benefit of the public, could you just mention briefly the Arlington service contract and the pressures we're facing with respect to that?
Yes. Arlington County, we have court services, emergency dispatch, and fire services, and jail services. We've gotten the preliminary billing for FY19, and it looks like it's going to be, or those preliminary notes are for a $400,000 increase in those contractual costs. We're going to look at that very closely. This has happened before in the past, particularly in times when Arlington has been under budget pressure, and that is the case this year. We'll look at those numbers and examine them very carefully, but that is a problem that we're dealing with on the budget side. That, in addition to what Ms. Hardy noted with the government shutdown, that will have impacts on WMATA, and the local governments are the backstop. When their fee revenue goes down, they're going to ask us for additional revenues. So those are budget problems that we'll be grappling with over the next couple of weeks. I'll give council some updates, but as I'm getting department budgets were due today, and so we're starting the review. But in the things that people have had to cut to come in with the zero budget growth guidance, there are really significant programs that are going to be impacted. That's what just the initial review of those budget submissions are. So I want to get that information out so it's not a surprise in March when the budget is presented, just so people know some of the things that we're grappling with.
All right, thank you very much. Our next item is potentially a closed session for an update with respect to the discussions with regarding the 10-acre site. I don't know if anybody would like to make a motion to go into closed session. Prepared to read one. Upon a motion made by council member, seconded by council member
Hardy.
and passed by a vote of city council, council went into closed session pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A29, discussion of the award of a public contract and the terms or scope of such contract, where discussion in open session would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the city, specifically terms of contracts for the campus project. Councilmember Connolly?
Yes.
Councilmember Duncan?
Yes.
Councilmember Hardy?
Yes.
Councilmember Lichtenhouse?
Yes.
Councilmember Snyder?
No.
Councilmember Z?
Yes.
Councilmember Tarter? Yes. Okay. So why don't we take a short break to get the cameras and microphones out, and then we'll go into closed session. You can take down the cameras and all right. We are coming out of closed session. Upon a motion made by council member
Connolly.
and seconded by council member
Z.
and passed by a vote of city council, council reconvened in open session. Council member Connolly.
Yes.
Duncan.
Yes.
Hardy.
Yes.
Lichtenhouse.
Yes.
Snyder. Z.
Yes.
Tarter. Yep. All right. The time is 9:40. All right. This is a certification. Upon a motion made by council member
Connolly.
and seconded by Councilmember
Duncan?
passed upon affirmative roll call vote in open session, it was certified that only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed session or meeting by the city council. Councilmember Conley?
Yes.
Duncan?
Yes.
Hardy?
Yes.
Lichtenhouse?
Yeah.
Snyder? Z?
Yeah.
Tarter? Yep. All right. Is there anything else you want to talk about tonight?
Let's adjourn, Mayor.
Let's do it. All right, we're adjourned.